Lynette Oxley here for Tac SHAC Tactical TV. I'm here with Paul and without Thor hopefully today, and we can finish the show without being killed. So welcome, Paul.
Hi Lynn, the viewers. Yeah, apparently there's a old steel electrical conduit that runs in the wall right behind our heads here, down to a plug, and we think that was providing an earth for the lightning. So it was literally crackling right next to our ears.
Yeah.
So we decided, and our radio mics decided that this was it. They just interested in playing. Yeah. Interesting.
Hopefully it's on now. Okay, great. Paul, tell us what's happening on the legal front.
Okay,
there's quite a couple of things.
So there's a bunch of things, and I'll start at the back. Oh no, let me start in the order. I know that Hannes has got some stuff, some graphics that he can show you. So let me rather start in the place that Hannes expects me to start. Otherwise, it might be interesting. So we've had a couple of successes. You know, we've been complaining for a long time about the appeals board. The appeals board has, under the stewardship of the new chair, has made some rather bizarre decisions in the last few years. And one of those things was that they tend to vary the results, or they vary the order. So you appeal a particular thing, you get a refusal on a license application, and you put an appeal in against that particular reason. Then the appeals board comes back to you and says to you, yeah, we hear your argument about that particular reason. However, we've now found another reason why we're refusing the appeal. They can't do that. Yeah. You know, they have to be specific. They can only respond. You know, they can't expect us to take cognizance of things which haven't been put on the table.
Yeah.
So anyway, one of the things was a CZ Scorpion that was refused on appeal, and on that old saw of you failed to convince the registrar that there is a need for this particular firearm. And then we appealed it, and the appeals board came back and said, after due consideration of your client's appeal against the National Commissioner of Police's refusal of your client's application for the license to possess a firearm, the appeal board has decided to refuse the appeal. In terms of 16.2, the registrar may issue a license in terms of this section to any natural person who is a dedicated sportsman or dedicated hunter if the application is accompanied by a sworn statement or sworn declaration from the chairperson of an accredited hunting association or sport shooting association. Or someone delegated in writing by him or her stating that the applicant is a registered member of that organization. The certificate issued by the South African Practical Shooting Association to your client does not comply with the above mentioned section.
Wow.
So there was a whole bunch of these that went through. And the secretary of the association, Sibella O'Donovan, had signed on behalf, she has the authority to do on behalf of the chairman, because she's the executive member that works in the office. So Sibella's signature had been accepted for years and years and years and years without any problems. So the appeals board bombed, or the appeals board bombed this. So we then took this on judicial review. And we invited the appeal board to reconsider their decision as based on we'd had a judicial review of a Type 56 that was as we discussed on one of our previous shows, that was refused, and that refusal was overturned by the appeals by judicial review by the North Gauteng High Court. So we presented this information to the appeals board. Now I'm going to touch on something which is something which is important. There's this thing in this a Latin name for a function which basically means or for a legal principle. It's called functus officio, and it basically means that a decision maker cannot vary their own decision. So if they've made a decision on something, the door is closed to that decision maker. That's typically to prevent people going back and offering that decision maker a bribe or an inducement to change their minds. So functions officio is kind of an important thing. It's the reason why there's an appeal board. It's the reason why there's judicial reviews. It's the reason why an appeal goes to a court of appeals. It's so the original decision maker, once they've reached their decision, that's it, they're done. You have to go to the next person in the process. So in this instance, after the appeals board, it's judicial review. The appeals board may not vary their own decisions. Once they've made them, they've drawn a line under it. They cannot change that. So we went back to but they do make mistakes, and they are sometimes inclined, if they admit that they made a mistake, to rectify their mistake. So in this case, we went back to them, we said to them, but we've just taken this on judicial review, this exact same point. There was this previous case and blah, 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 and here's all the details.
And parties and...
So here's the people that were involved, and we invited the appeal board to reconsider their decision, which is strictly, as I said, strictly not right. But the refusals were identical. We just dealt with one of these with one of our other members. So then the appeal board came back to us initially and said that we must proceed to review the application through the judicial process. So then we got in touch with them and we said to them, listen, if we do that, we'll do that. We happily do that. If we do that, we'll seek personal costs orders against the functionaries of the appeals board if they don't reconsider this. Guess what they did?
They reconsidered it.
CFR and its functionaries and the appeal board and its functionaries are invited to reconsider their position as to whether they are still hell-bent on refusing the other firearm license under the circumstances. Should I not hear from you or CFR and the appeal board not reconsider their position by 14 February, the client advises you hereby that in that instance he intends to cite the functionaries of the minister and the appeal board and to seek costs orders against all respondents jointly and severally on a punitive basis. Guess what happened? The appeal board granted the license. So we seem to see then our second case
so they
reversed their decision, which they're strictly not supposed to be able to do. So they reversed their decision. So then we had another one, an application for a Smith & Wesson 1522 for another one of our members was on the basis that the cops reckoned that it was that on the reason for decision it says a firearm that may be issued in terms of section 15 is any rifle or shotgun which is not fully or semi-automatic. But he'd applied under section 16. And fortunately he had kept all of his paperwork. So when we informed the appeal board of this, they informed us that they sent a letter with some concerns. This letter was never received for us, but so we asked them to respond again. And they came back to us and said, your client currently possesses 8 firearms, with 5 of those issued in terms of and 3 in terms of section 16 and 3 in terms of section 15. He now seeks to acquire an additional firearm for the purposes of section 16. Your client seems to be collecting firearms, even though he is not a collector. In other words, a section 17 license application. Added to this, he is still an occasional sports shooter, whilst at the same time being a dedicated sports shooter. This is a contradiction in terms, they say. The board notes that the initial decision by the registrar might have been incorrect. Nevertheless, in reconsidering your client's appeal, these other issues as detailed came to light. Your client accordingly is invited to requested to address the board on these issues whilst advancing reasons why the appeal should not be refused. So then we responded to this, and I think we have, that's the, sorry, heavily redacted, so we can't see the details of the people.
Nearly like the Pfizer report.
Nearly like, yeah, let's not go there. Anyway, so we then appealed to them and said to them, listen, but this doesn't work. we said to them, having regard to the fact that dedicated hunters and sport shooters have a complex web and broad spectrum of lawful, legitimate and safe sport shooting needs, which may not necessarily be satisfied by only 4 firearms, which are satisfied by firearms which comply with the prescribed equipment for the fulfillment of such needs, the legislature recognizes that the limit on 4 firearms should not be applied to persons holding such dedicated hunting, sport shooting through their Section 16(2) compliant membership with an accredited association. Therefore, there's nothing barring a license holder under Section 13 and or Section 15 from later acquiring dedicated sport shooting status. There's also nothing barring a person who has dedicated sport shooting status from applying for a Section 13 firearm or a Section 15 firearm. So we went back to them with this and we explained this to them, and we again rattled the sabers. And we said to them, well, so this is where it is. You guys have cocked this whole thing up. And we said to them, the appeal board does not have authority or the jurisdiction to allege that the applicant is collecting firearms as envisioned at Section 16. Each and every firearm licensed to the applicant under Section 16, under Section 17, each and every firearm licensed to the applicant under Section 16 was comprehensively motivated for very particular sport shooting categories. This was an application under Section 16, which follows the rules, etc., etc. And then we attached all sorts of documents to it, and the appeal board again reconsidered the appeal, and the appeal was therefore successful. Let us hope that the board has learned something from this. One can only hope that they're a little bit humbled by the fact that they've had to walk these back. I'm not convinced, however, that that's the case. Then I have a rather unfortunate thing to report on. Outdoor Investment Holdings, which is the holding company for Safari Outdoor and for Inyati and for Formalito, because of the extraordinary long time that it takes CFR to process firearm licenses, they have been backing up with guns. They've got their safes are full at the branches. So they had started storing the firearms, the overflow firearms, the ones that were long outstanding or whatever. They started moving them off premises and storing them at Inyati, which is one of the wholesalers, which is out at Inyati Park, the SA Hunters premises out in north of Pretoria on Zambezi Drive, and where they've got massive vaults and all the proper safekeeping, etc., etc., etc. And they're obviously also importers, so they have licenses and stuff like that. So they'd been putting in the book, they'd been writing in their register, transferred to storage at Inyati, blah blah, and they've been doing this for years. And it seemed to be perfectly okay. They were then visited by a DFO, and the DFO said to them, "No, you can't do this anymore." And they said, "Well, why?" And they said, "But your license stipulates that the firearms on your register must be stored on the premises for which the license has been granted, which is this premise." So Outdoor Investments took this to the North Gauteng High Court, and I have to report that they got quite badly beaten. The state made a very good case for the facts, as I've alluded to them, that the license is granted to a particular dealer to trade from a particular premise, and the firearms that are on their register must be on those particular premises at all times. Obviously, except when they've been sent for gunsmithing or something of that nature. So they lost, and they lost with costs.
Good.
So that's not good for any of us.
It's a sad story.
I've read through the court papers in briefly, and GOSA Law has read through them in a little bit more detail, and we're not entirely convinced that the arguments
from
the state are convincing to us. It seems to us that the state the SAPS, through their incompetence and their failure to process the licenses timeously, have created a crisis. They've created the situation where dealers have run out of storage space. What are the dealers to do?
Now, I give people 2 years now to free storage, but I've just had one guy, and he's just got 2 licenses, but he's been waiting forever, and it's not from lack of trying.
Well, this is it, you see. So whose fault is it? At the end of the day, and what do you do? How do you mitigate the situation? How do you store those firearms? We're talking about we're a dealer, and I know one of the larger dealers in Four Ways. No names, no picture, everybody probably knows what I'm talking about. When we approached them and we said to them, we're taking this matter to the court for the court to determine what constitutes a license and whether a printout is sufficient proof of the existence of a license. And the owner said to me, well, they've got thousands of firearms that have been approved. The licenses have been approved. His clients are coming into him and saying to him, well, look, here's my approval SMS. But I've been waiting for 6 or 8 or 10 or 24 months for a printed license. Yeah. And the license is just on, sorry, my Rottweiler's licking my knee. Hello, G. Here's a good boy. Here's a good boy. Oh, there we go. He makes his appearance. So anyway, so the licenses aren't coming out, and because the license cards aren't coming out, the guys can't take the guns out of the dealer's vault. They can't collect the firearms. This is a problem. It's a huge problem, and it's a problem that sits completely with the SAPS. The dealers aren't purposely sitting with more firearms than they can accommodate, but once they've sold the firearms and they have to keep them on the premises, what do you do once the vault is full? What do you do?
Can't just build a bigger vault.
So here at Tac SHAC, we are busy building bigger vaults as we speak, and it's enormously expensive. But that's because the premises are owned by our family trust, so we can pretty much do whatever the hell we like. It's our property, so we can expand. But a lot of these guys are in shopping centres. Where do you expand to? If it's on that particular premises, where do you expand to? You can't. You're tied into a situation. So what do? Stop selling guns. Yeah. Close your vault. Say, sorry guys, we're all done now. You go out of business, because that's essentially what this would do. So we're not entirely certain that this order is. We don't know yet this only came out this week. We don't know yet from Outdoor Investments whether they're going to appeal this. This will come out in the very near future. But it's a bad order. It's an order that has very bad implications for a lot of dealers, because I know a lot of dealers are desperate for a place to store firearms, and this if this stands, we might all have problems. All right, so that's I've skirted over it. I've just explained it basically. I haven't read from the paperwork, but I understand the case fairly well, because it's something we've been grappling with for years and years. The last legal matter that I want to talk about, and this is a bit more positive, hopefully, is years ago. GOSA law at that time was Anika Rosley. And I attended in support of the South African Arms and Ammunition Dealers Association. We attended a hearing that they had in the North Gauteng High Court with regards to the electronic registry, the electronic connectivity. So electronic registry there is an electronic registry at the moment. It's on computer. That's electronic. The registry is on computer. The police have sort of come a little bit of the way forward by making the submission of 350s via emails possible. But that's not electronic connectivity as mandated by the Act in 2016.
You can't put the trailers of the gun if the gun is actually being
2004. Sorry, where was my mind? So in 2004, when the Act was brought into being, was enacted, the Parliament said to the police, you will establish electronic connectivity. Well, for 18 years now, the police have been breaking the law because they haven't established electronic connectivity. A couple of years ago, the South African Arms and Ammunition Dealers Association took the police to the North Gauteng High Court and said, for God's sake, we need the bloody electronic registry, the electronic connectivity. And the judge said to them, you have, she said to the police, you will establish this. You have, you will report back to me on a regular basis until such time as this is established. You will speak to all of the other parties involved. Because she was aware, of course, that at that time that GOSA was also before the courts. And guess what happened?
Nothing.
Duck's egg, nothing. The police wiped their ass on the court, as they typically do. So the Dealers Association is now back in court to have a contempt of court finding made against the police to try to force them into creating this electronic connectivity.
But there's definitely problems with the database as such, because
yes, of course there is.
On a regular basis, stuff that's on your name goes back to Government Department 29, which is imports, and it's really impossible.
Well, I can share with you guys. We've just had a compliance inspection by the provincial compliance officers who sat here for 2 days and went through our stuff and produced it, and then compared this to a list which they generated for themselves at CFR, and they said, but where are these firearms? And we said, well, I don't know. They said, but according to our records, they're on your name. And we said, well, no, they're not. Let's go through the registers line by line for the last 10 years. Those guns have never been in our stock.
But we know that...
So how did they come onto our name? Now, the point being that those guns exist. So if they were suddenly on our name, it means they've come off somebody else's name.
But it's a mess. It's not just that. It's guns, if somebody hasn't registered or applied for a license for a long time, and now he applies for the license, it used to be on our dealer's code, and then it's suddenly back on Government Department 29.
Which is the importer's code, yeah.
So I know the database, and it changes on a daily basis. So
Yeah, look, the database is rotten. We know this, and perhaps I don't know. But the police have never given any reason for why they haven't established electronic connectivity. This is a database. No. It's not even a very big database. It's relatively small. In database terms, it's tiny, as a matter of fact. Yeah. It could probably be run on bloody SQL server.
Yeah.
You wouldn't need big SAP machines and stuff like that to run this. It's not that complicated. No, but for some reason, it's too complicated for the police to run. Anyway, so the Rottweiler's now asking us to play with him.
With the Wabba.
With Wabba. Okay, sorry guys. So that's the legal. Oh hell, we're gonna have to throw this for him. Otherwise, he's gonna carry on. Okay, that's him out the door.
For a moment.
Sorry.
I don't know if he's going to get to the other points.
Oh, geez, we're almost on half an hour. Okay, so what we promised to you last week and what we missed out on because of the lightning storm, we need to explain our origin story, GOSA's origin story, because there's a lot of confusion about how GOSA works specifically with Tac SHAC. Who's who in the zoo? How does it work? How do we work together? Where does it all come from? So we're going to start every week. We'll end the segment with a 5-minute discussion of our origin story, and eventually we'll get up to the present, hopefully. So the origin story of GOSA is as such. In the early 2000s, one of the other large firearm associations in South Africa used to have a provincial structures, etc., and they, for some reason, decided to retreat out of their provincial structures into a trust, and in doing so, they abandoned their provincial structures. And a lot of the people in the provincial structures felt aggrieved by this. They felt left out. They felt that this wasn't the organization was now becoming less responsive. So they created They went to Gun Owners of America, with whom they had quite good relationships, and they established Gun Owners South Africa, which is why our email address is gunownerssa.org, because it was registered for us by gunowners.org, which is the US association, Gun Owners Association. So they're our parent association. For years and years and years and years and years, we decided not to challenge the other associations for membership, because that would be counterproductive. We thought, why do we don't need splitting the membership into smaller little parcels. So for years and years and years, we played merely an agitating role. Yes. We wrote letters to to newspapers, and we did this mostly. One of the doyens of the South African firearms trade was a guy by the name of Alex Holmes, from Roy Swaden in town, in Johannesburg town, one of the large firearms shops at the time, back in the 80s and 90s. And Alex Holmes created something called the South African Firearms Forum. And we were active on the South African Firearms Forum in terms of writing letters, trying to create awareness about firearm ownership, etc., 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 and assisting all of the other associations where we could. This only went so far, unfortunately. Then South African Firearms Forum closed down, and we were a bit of a loss until 2013, 2014, when a number of people that had been involved in the beginning with GOSA and ourselves and a bunch of other interested parties decided that we needed to change GOSA into something a lot stronger, a lot more powerful. And that's probably all we've got time for today. Yeah. So tune in next week.
Little meetings in Cape Town pubs, if I remember.
Yes,
a very long time ago.
Yes, yeah, but generally in a pub, they do say alcohol is a solution. Anyway, folks, that's all for today. We'll carry on from 2014 forward next week, and we'll gradually get our way up to the present.
I just want to take the time to thank all of the sponsors so far for the GOSA Girls on Fire. I think there been some awesome sponsorship. You're probably sitting on about 600,000 rands worth of sponsorship. We're still a bit short on 308 ammunition. If you've got 300 rounds laying around, please, or we can get it for about 8,500 rands. So if anybody's want to contribute to that, that's still a shortfall. Any other goodies will be great, but I think it's going to be an absolute awesome event. We're totally full. It's just going to be fantastic event.
Yeah, so, I was out with Lynette a little bit this morning at some of the sponsors, or some of the prospective sponsors, and I can tell you that there are this year so far, and we anticipated growing actually. There are 5 firearms on offer, at least 5. We have 2 firearms. We have 2 firearms on offer for the Fighting Spirit Award, where we only had 1 last year. Yeah. 2 fantastic firearms, by the way. Very nice.
I'm not going to say anything further because we actually have 2 people that were very close. So we're not going to announce the winner. We're going to just, but we've got 2 ladies that was very close, so they're both going to be invited. So they're both going to end up with a really nice firearm. We have 2 more firearms which have been donated for raffle prizes, and they're not like old Ruby 32s. It's going to be one is a Glock 43X, brand new Glock. Well, anyway, so just to let you know. And one Taurus. And then for the for those often unsung souls, the range officers that run the ranges, those 20-something ladies. They get to have to be put in a draw to win a Type 56, an AK-47. So that's going to. It's the first time we're doing that for the range officers. Just to say thank you, because just to say thank you very much. Because they always want to shoot as well, and it's a sad event. But they don't get to shoot; they just get to work. But without them, we can't do it, and we've got some awesome ladies. And we have some more firearms, hopefully coming in the next space of the next month. So, if you've got anything else that you would like to contribute, please do so. And thank you very much. That's
Thanks, y'all. Have a lekker weekend.
Thank you. Cheers.
Scrappy the Land Rover has lots of friends. Come play with us, the fun never ends. We're gun buddies, we learn gun safety. It's fun and easy, just like 1, 2, 3. If you see a gun, you shouldn't be afraid. You're a gun buddy and you'll be okay. So gun buddies, what does Scrappy say? Stop, don't touch, call a parent, walk away. Someone has a gun they keep in their room. Don't touch it or it will go boom. Scrappy knows what's best, so listen girls and boys. Guns are not bad, but guns are not toys. If you see a gun, you shouldn't be afraid. You're a gun buddy and you'll be okay. So gun buddies, what does Scrappy say? Stop, don't touch, call a parent, walk away. A friend invites you to come and play. He tells you to touch a gun. No, that's not okay. Scrappy knows what's best, so listen girls and boys. Guns are not bad, but guns are not toys. If you see a gun, you shouldn't be afraid. You're a gun buddy and you'll be okay. So gun buddies, what does Scrappy say? Stop, don't touch, call a parent, walk away. If you see a gun, you shouldn't be afraid. You're a gun buddy and you'll be okay. So gun buddies, what does Scrappy say? Stop, don't touch, call a parent, walk away.